Croc 2 is a good game, you guys. No, I mean, it does everything a sequel should do. As in, it fixes the mistakes slash pitfalls that the original had. Like, take for instance the controls, which were the biggest issue plaguing the first Croc game. In this game, they totally fixed them. Croc no longer controls like a tank, which means that when you miss a platform to jump on, it feels like it's your fault, and not you trying to fight with the controls of the game. It's weird, in many ways Croc 2 is designed like the original. There's still tight platforming, but now with better controls, so this kind of thing feels possible. It's very strange how one major correction can improve a game tremendously, but it does, and for Croc the improvement needed was its controls, and Croc 2 fixes the issue. Alright, so I kinda jumped the gun a bit. What's the story, you may ask? Well, Baron Dante has been resurrected and he kidnaps a scientist, but Croc doesn't really care about that guy though. Croc is actually looking for his parents. Yeah, there's actually a bit more dialogue in this game. Due to, in another change, Croc 2 now has a HUD world where you now interact with your adoptive family of Gobos before a stage. Croc 2 is also kind of mission based. Basically the Gobos give you a mission and you do it for them. Honestly though, the missions in this game are almost always completed by simply completing the stage you're on. It's more of a linear experience than it may sound like, but trust me, it is. Croc 2 has a lot more dialogue than the last game, and that's either a good thing or a bad thing, and while I don't personally care for story and platformers, Croc 2 does a good job of making the Gobos you interact with feel like a part of the Croc world, I suppose. And even though I don't like this greater amount of story, I know some people will appreciate it. The big thing I want to stress is that the story never felt invasive, because you can skip these story cutscenes by pressing the square button, which is a welcome addition, I may add. Also, there's now a world store where you can buy health upgrades and lifesaver gummies. That's right, Croc 2 had a promotion with lifesavers, or gummy savers, or whatever you want to call them. It's such a why type of thing, and it's so weird that I just had to point it out. I mean, I like gummy savers, so I guess that's a plus in my book, but, yeah, this game did cross-promotion. Oh, but yeah though, the gummies are used to launch you to higher platforms, so that's neat I guess. Now, you may be wondering, well, how do I pay for things at this store? And I'm glad you asked. The gems that Croc collects, which were originally his health, now function as your main type of currency in this game. This is another improvement I like to point out. You see, before I would only collect the gems so I could take a hit. Now I'm collecting them so I can expand my health bar or purchase the gummies. Also, the soundtrack is just as great as the first one. The music is upbeat and makes you want to go platforming. Croc's sound effects are also the same as last time, which is a welcome addition because they help to make Croc just as adorable as he was before. Now, that's not to say Croc 2 is perfect by any means. I watched / read some reviews about this game prior to going into it, and most people said the biggest issue with this game was the camera. Guys, honestly, I rarely had a problem with the camera. Mostly because even though you don't have a lot of control of the camera, if you hold the circle button, it will go back behind you, and honestly, that always seemed to fix the camera for me. Now, to be fair, I play a lot of platformers from this era, so perhaps it takes more to set me off, but the camera never upset me, you guys. No, my main issue with Croc 2 are these side stages, I guess they'd be called. Basically, every world in Croc 2 has stages that aren't platforming and you do a side game, like racing boats in the first world. My issue with these stages is that they just aren't that fun, you guys. Like, take for instance this snowball one. You go way too fast in this stage, and because of that, you tend to fall off the edge of the level very easily. I get that these stages are in the game to shake things up a bit, but all they do is frustrate and bore me. Another issue I have is with these ropes. I can never seem to get the timing right, and I tend to either overjump or underjump and take damage from a pit. They wouldn't be that bad if they weren't in a lot of the stages of the game. Also, most of the worlds in the game feel a little bit generic. Like, If you've ever played a platformer before, you know the typical tropes they follow. Croc 2 follows those tropes pretty much to a T, which unfortunately can make some of the levels feel the same in the game, you know? Overall, I really enjoy Croc 2. It's got a couple of pitfalls that I couldn't quite get over, but it's a really fun game and a great 3D platformer from this era. It's so far my favorite game I've actually checked out for this show, which is saying quite a bit. I give it 4 stars out of 5, and I would say give it a shot, you guys. Now, unfortunately, even though a Croc 3 was planned at one point, it would eventually get canceled due to Argonaut Games going out of business in 2004. So that means more than likely we're never gonna get another Croc game, which is actually kind of sad to an extent. I mean, think about it. We live in an era where Bubsy can make a return, but Croc can't. That just doesn't seem right to me. Now, I've learned to never say never with life or video games in general, so perhaps one day we could see our favorite little scaly crocodile come back, but it's highly unlikely. Now, the greatest question. What should I talk about next, you guys? What should I talk about next? Wonder what that could be. So somehow a mailman got in my room and dropped off this package. I wonder what's in it. Huh. I guess we know what comes next. Be sure to like this video down below, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to follow me on Twitter for updates for Pac-Man World's review coming out soon.